Hey guys, my name is Niranjan Dasar. Today we are going to discuss about scenario writing ideas. I think scenario writing is one of the crucial stage in software development lifecycle or software testing lifecycle because everything else follows the scenarios, right? If you come up with as many scenarios as possible, you will write test cases for all those scenarios, and the coverage will be more, and the possibility of missing a defect will be very less. If you have written very less scenarios, then the coverage will, I think, coverage will be very less, and there will be a possibility of missing out a defect, right? So I think if you come up with as many scenarios as possible, then test case design or test execution will be easy. During my initial stage of career, I used to get lot of comments and lot of suggestions to add new scenarios from our business team, right? So I have learned based on my experience, and I'm going to give those ideas what I'm following now to write scenarios, right? If you are also facing that this issue, if you are facing issue to come up with as many scenarios as possible or getting so many comments from your business side, this video is for you, right? Without wasting time, let's get started. Let us understand scenario writing ideas by writing scenarios for this pencil. You might be wondering, what is the relation between writing a scenarios for a software application and writing a scenarios for this pencil, right? I know everyone would have used pencil in your life, right? So if you can able to write a scenarios for this pencil, then it you'll understand this concept very well, and you can apply this concept to any complex applications. So I will explain these scenarios writing ideas by writing scenarios for this pencil, and you can apply these learnings in any complex applications, right? Let's see how we can write scenarios for this pencil, and I will also guide you how we can apply those ideas or concept to any kind of applications, any complex applications or any software applications. So before we start, I would suggest you to pause this video and write scenarios to test this pencil. Write a scenarios, as many scenarios as possible. Then in next slide, I will come up with my own scenarios, and I will explain how I came up with those scenarios. And then you compare your scenarios with my scenarios. And if there are any difference, implement them. Or if you come up with scenarios other than mine, we'll discuss those things in the comments section. Now we will see creative ways to write test scenarios. First one is functional. Whenever you have given any software application or module, there will be a functionality for that, right? You are expecting some functionality from that particular piece of code or application. In my case, if I want to test a pencil, for the minimum thing I need to test is it should write on a white paper, and if there is an eraser behind that pencil, it should erase the whatever I have written. So this is a basic functionality. We also call these scenarios as positive scenarios. So whenever you are given any functionality or application, just think from the customer perspective what they are expecting and write those scenarios. So these are the functional setup scenarios, and this is one basic idea we need to follow while writing the test scenario. Right. Next one is error. We also call this as a negative scenarios. So once we write positive scenarios, we need to validate negative scenarios. That means what that application should not do. So in my case, I'll just test my pencil. If what happens if I write it on a skin, or what happens if I throw that pencil inside the water and then took it back and I'll start writing. What happens if I write on a metal or walls? So these are not the expected functionalities, but I am still testing them to validate what happens in these negative scenarios, right? Negative cases. So it, uh, it the, I think I expect it should not write on a skin, or it should not harm the skin. That's the expected result here. So it's a very good scenario to test. Always think from the negative side of that application and write scenarios for those kind of functionality. You just think from the negative side of the functional test cases, whatever functional scenarios, whatever you've written before, and write those scenarios. This is the second concept what I follow while writing these scenarios. That is the error scenarios, right? Third one is boundary value scenarios. In my case, what I do, I'll test the pencil after the first sharpen, whether it writes or not. And I'll test the pencil when it is very short in length. At the end moment, still it is writing or not. Or I'll test the eraser for the first time. It will erase properly or not. Or I'll test the eraser at the last moment uh, of the when we have a last part of the eraser. Right, these are some boundary value conditions. Uh, I also like to give one example of a software application. If you have given a page which accept a numeric value from 1 to 1000, so if you test the value by entering one between 1 and 1000, it's a functional scenario, right? And if you test a negative value minus 100 or greater than 1000 like 10,000, 20,000, it's a error scenario or negative scenario, you can say. For boundary value, what we need to do, if it accepts from 1 to 1000, and if you we need to test for a boundary value, like what happens if you enter 0 or minus 1, just near the value to 1, or what happens if you enter 1001 or 1002 or 999, it accepts or not. These are like boundary value conditions. So we need to consider this boundary values while writing scenarios. This is another uh, point we need to remember while writing the test scenarios. That is what I follow. And fourth one is performance related scenarios. Even though if you do not test performance related functionalities in the functional testing, right? We don't do any performance related testing in our functional testing, but I would suggest it's still a good idea to suggest some scenarios to your team while writing the test scenarios or testing the functionality. So they might ask performance team to test those scenarios, right? Or they might ask development team to test those performance related uh, scenarios in the development environment. So as a tester, it's good to add so those scenarios as well. In my case, I'll test how long it uh, how long I can write after sharpening, or after before I sharpen it again, or tip pressure breakpoint, like how much pressure I can give. Like different persons give different pressure on the pencil while writing, right? I need I need to check how much pressure it will withstand. So these kind of scenarios also adds a value in your scenarios document. Next one is security. Even though we do not write security related test cases in our functional testing, but it's again still a good idea to add some minimum security related test cases. Like here, whenever I'm given a pencil to test, I'll 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 just suggest to that manufacturer or the whoever has given me a pencil to test, like is this lead uh, toxic to a user? If it is toxic, then I don't suggest this to release, or as a tester, I don't approve this pencil to go ahead to the end user, right? It may harm uh, to our customers if a small kid um, touches that lead to a tongue or swallow it. It will lead to medical issues, right? So this suggesting is again a good idea. As a tester, we need to come up with as many scenarios as possible, and we need to think out of the box and test that application. So it's our responsibility to make sure that it will not harm anything to the end user. That we need to make sure. I would also test the sharpness of the tip, because if you give that pencil to prisoner uh, to make use of their free time, and if it is very sharp, they can harm other prisoners in the jail, right? So we need to think about different end users, and we need to come up with scenarios. Next one is accessibility. We need to think from the end user perspective, right? So there will be a different kind of end users will be using your application or your product. In my case, I need to think about different hand sizes that should fit, the pencil should fit, right? So in the software applications perspective, we need to think about differently abled people, like how blind people can use your application, how a person with uh, hearing disabilities can use your applications. So you need to think about different kind of persons, and you need to test the application, or if it is your application is not yet ready for accessibility perspective, so it's still better idea you can suggest some ideas or scenarios so that they can implement those functionalities in the upcoming implementations, right? And next one is internationalization. Nowadays, almost most of the applications are implementing or releasing on across the countries, and we need to uh, understand the users from different countries, and we need to implement the functionalities accordingly, right? In my case, I need to think about the color. I'll think about the color of the pencil as well, because some colors will be offensive in some cultures or some countries. So I don't suggest those colors for the pencil to be in, right? uh, Again, if you are launching any application or website, so you need to think about how user think about your application, how it looks for them, and we need to test those scenarios as well. It's good to add those scenarios. And in my case, I'll add how it will ship, or what kind of packaging we are going to use, so that whether it will harm the pencils while shipping or not. That those kind of scenarios I'll write for pencil, but you need to think from your application perspective, how end users will think about this product, and what are the different countries it is going to deploy, and what is the culture of those users. Based on that, you need to write scenarios, right? I follow this concept while writing the test scenarios. And please let me know in the comment section if you are following any other concepts, and I would be very happy to learn new concepts of writing the test scenarios. All right, thank you for watching, and let's keep in touch. Thank you.